Now, let's return to our top story. Anthony Albanese refusing to stand up to China, being all buddy and friendly with Chinese President Xi Jinping. Peter Jennings is Strategic Analysis Australia Director, and he joins me now. Peter, thank you so much for your time this evening. Look, this is an important story. The Albanese government says it's had a reset on the relationship with China. It's been boasting about that reset, proud of it, saying that they're normalising relations. But is this what normalising relations means? That when you have a hostile act from a Chinese warship that injures one of our sailors, that you don't raise it when you see the Chinese president, and in fact you just act all chummy and pretend nothing has ever happened?
It's remarkable, Sharri, and so much for, the Albanese mantra that we would push back when we needed to. If attacking Australian sailors is not sufficient cause for the Prime Minister to complain to Xi Jinping, then I can't imagine what would be. And here we get to the reality of this so-called stabilised relationship. It is that our government is going to tie itself into absolute contortions, refusing to acknowledge what average Australians know to be true, which is that China is a bully, particularly under Xi Jinping, and they will continue to bully Australia and lots of other countries in the region. So I think the Prime Minister's performance was woeful. He didn't have an agenda going into APEC, but he got one handed to him with this opportunity. And not simply talking to Xi Jinping, he should have gone to the Canadian Prime Minister, Mr Trudeau, who's complained of similar behaviour against a Canadian warship. He should have gone to the US President, the British Prime Minister, a number of others there to essentially démarche, to create a sort of a broader protest on the part of countries that happen to be members of the G20 that are suffering similar hostility from the People's Liberation Army. And the fact that Albanese failed to do that just tells me that, he's become very sort of lead-footed in the way that he's trying to run foreign policy. And I think it's going to be something that Australians will be really disappointed by.
And concerned.
It's the PM's job to stand up for our Defence Force when they come under attack.
Yeah. I mean, look, I think initially people thought, it's good that, China's lifted some, not all of its trade sanctions. There's still trade sanctions in place on some beef products, on lobster, on wine. We still have an Australian, Yang Hyung-jin, still in prison, wrongfully detained. But, one coalition source, Peter, said to me today that Albanese is becoming a useful idiot for China. And it does look, such a serious incident that the US... The chair of the Foreign Relations Committee put out a statement today expressing how serious this is, this targeting of an Australian diver in international waters with sonar weapons. If America can stand up to it, do you think Albanese is being too subservient here?
Absolutely he is. And it's a puzzle to me why such a priority is being put on insisting that we take Australia back into an abusive relationship with the People's Republic. The government is now at complete odds on what its messages should be to the business community. The message should be find other markets, find other sources of supply, don't become dependent on China. In fact, I think this is, politically really silly for Albanese too, because if average Australians can see that this is a problem and the Prime Minister's not even prepared to talk about it, they're just going to get cynical about him. They're not going to say that our bilateral relationship with China is in a brilliant state. It's not, because with the exception of those trade issues, China is not altering its more aggressive behaviour in the region. And that means it's inevitable. We will continue to face incidents like this and worse, and other countries will too. And Australia needs to be prepared to, push back really hard and publicly against those things.
Yeah. I mean, if there's one thing we need from our Prime Minister, it's to stand up for our sovereignty. That is the most important thing. Now, Peter, just on another topic, there are reports, and we stress that they haven't been verified by Israel, but there are reports coming out of the United States. Even Joe Biden has said, kind of fingers crossed, that a deal might be close between Israel and Hamas, brokered by the US and Qatar, for hostages to be released. Peter, I'm interested in your thoughts on this deal. You couldn't say outright, it's an amazing deal, the details that have been released. Obviously, it will be incredible to have 50 Israeli hostages brought back home, especially the children and the babies. It's heartbreaking that they're currently in the arms of terrorists. But why is it 50 Israeli hostages released in return for 300 Palestinian? How can that be the deal?
Well, there's some precedent for it, Sharri. I recall an incident about, I think, 5 years ago when one captured Israeli soldier was released by Hamas in return for, I think, something like 1,200 Hamas terrorists that had been held in Israeli prisons. Israel puts an enormously high price on its citizens, and I'm, very sympathetic to them doing that. But if the reports are true, that of course still leaves 200 or so individuals being held hostage. And it doesn't end the war. It seems to me that Israel cannot give up on its core strategic objective here, which is to destroy Hamas's military capabilities and to take the Hamas political leadership out of contention. Now, I can't imagine that that's what Netanyahu is about to do. But I guess if they have an opportunity to get 50 people released alive, then that is something that Israelis will want their government to do. So it's a horrible dilemma, as you've been saying.
Yeah.
But I think they need to take that opportunity if it's available to them.
Yeah, and we'll see how this unfolds. It's said to be in its final stages, so it's just a waiting game now.